gradually people get a little bit more sensitive to that. If we can't expect you to be a part of society when no one's watching, at least do it when someone's watching, please. That I don't think is too much to ask. But that said, the update is that, more than a year on, she is still defending what she did. She was on the podcast of Barry Weiss. Ugh. But anyway, said she had no other choice but to call 911 when the bird watcher, Christian Cooper, we didn't mention it, that was bird watcher. Most of you have seen the video, you know that, but offered her dog a treat after he asked her to keep the pooch on a leash. She said, he's holding these dog treats in one hand and a bike helmet in his other hand. And I'm thinking, oh my God, is this guy going to lure my dog over and try to hit him with his bike helmet? And if I end up over there, am I going to get hit by this bike helmet? I don't know that as a woman alone in a park that I had another option but to call police. That's a crazy way to think about. Like maybe he has the bike helmet because he was riding a bike before. I mean, that's a possibility.
I have been a woman alone in a park before, and I promise my mind has never gone there. Usually I see a bike helmet and I'm like, oh, this person was riding a bike. Not like, oh, this person wants to kill my dog and hit me with a bike helmet. Like, I'm sorry, but that's just absolutely not the most effective tool to use if someone did have nefarious intent. But of course, she only thought that because he was a black man. If it was a white man, I'm sure she wouldn't have, her mind immediately wouldn't have gone to, oh, this person's trying to hurt me. Oh, my life is in danger. My dog is in danger. And it really doesn't make her look good to say that. No, kind of an L on her part.
Sure, and look, she might say, well, look, my reactions on the video were, I wasn't sure what was happening. I had anxiety, like if someone stuck a camera in my face. She went onto a podcast to talk about this. She's had a year plus to think about what she did. And the best she's come up with was, oh, I've seen the video. I nailed it. There was no better thing that I could have done. Wouldn't change anything. Wish I could do it again. Like that's a crazy response. I wish I knew what Barry Weiss's response was. I kind of don't, but I wish I did. I have a feeling it wasn't highly critical of this woman. But anyway, she's mad because of like job stuff that developed as I lose interest in her personal life after this. I hope that at some point, like the cops being filmed should result in a change in their behavior. Regular people being filmed should result in a change in behavior. I can't control what you think, but like I at least hope that you would not like be eager to be known as an antisocial racist person. And that maybe this gets back to what we were talking about whether it's becoming more common or if we're just seeing it more. I do think that whatever social stigma against racism, I think that it's not as strong as it was. I think that Trump and other people in right-wing media and politics, like they've shown that you can get a following, you can be patriotic by doing these things, by focusing on these things. And there doesn't seem to be a lot of tools against it. There's not a lot of incentive not to be that way on the right. And I feel like it's filtering down to regular people. And you see it in Walmarts, you see it in Central Park, unfortunately.
Yeah, and the conservatives and the people who are the racists love to pivot to, oh, this is cancel culture. You can't tell someone's employer that they were doing racism in Walmart. You can't tell their employer that they said the N-word in Arby's. Like that's the real cancel culture. You're trying to ruin their life without like, a shred of irony at the fact that these are absolutely the consequences of their own actions. Like conservatives are allergic to accountability.
Yeah, and if you're that against cancel culture, maybe don't go into a person's workplace and attack them for speaking their language.
And then he's a firefighter; he can do that.
That's true. And then when you attack him, he says, "Hey, it's First Amendment." Well, then how is it not his First Amendment to speak Spanish or her? I don't even know. How does that not work? Why is the First Amendment only for conservatives? It's weird how that always works out. Anyway, unfortunately though, that is all the time for First Amendment we have. But Raivana, I want to thank you for joining us on the show. Where can people watch your show a little bit later on?
Yeah, so twitch.tv/TYT. It starts at, I won't use the Portillo's hot dog times. It's 4 p.m. Eastern, 1 p.m. Pacific.
Nice. I think you nailed it. Thank you. It was great having you on. Have a good day.
Thanks.
And by the way, before that, of course, you have Indisputable with Dr. Rashad Ritchie, joined by Dr. Jonathan Metzl. Should be a really exciting show. So if you're at Twitch, or I believe at Twitch, if you're at youtube.com/indisputable_TYT, then you're fine. Just keep doing what you're doing. The good doctor will come on, have an awesome show. For my part, though, if I could have you do one more thing, that would be to go to the community tab on our YouTube channel at youtube.com/thedamagereport, and you can vote in our community garbage person of the week poll. Tomorrow, Brett and I are gonna be choosing our garbage people, but you get to choose one as well. And boy, has this been a garbagey week. So go vote in the poll, we'll give you the results tomorrow. And until then, stay safe out there, stay sane out there, and I'll see you soon.
You know what time it is. It's Indisputable. I'm your host, Dr. Rashad Ritchie. We got a lot on the agenda. Ladies and gentlemen, breaking down news of the day with me will be Dr. Jonathan Metzl, who is a gun violence expert and professor at Vanderbilt, also author of Dying of Whiteness. That should be very fun. And my debate guest in the bullpen will be Andrew Ragusa. We're going to talk about the moratorium, evictions, COVID-19's impact. Should it be a lively debate? Ladies and gentlemen, my top story. Did you know it's possible to be an EMT and be racist and nothing will happen to you? Ladies and gentlemen, this is a throwback for Thursday. Here's a throwback. You see that cat? His name is Alex McNabb. Alex McNabb is host of a neo-Nazi podcast, and he compares black people to animals, but he works as an EMT specialist in Patrick County. Let me give you some more background. This story first came to light in 2019. I'm bringing this to your attention because of the new data that has come out showing that medical doctors and many involved in the healthcare arena, well, they engage in at least implicit racism based on the outcomes of their patients. Well, here's a guy that engages in a hyper-aggressive racism, and they did nothing to him, at least initially. McNabb, 35 years of age, is a frequent co-host of the Daily Shoah, as they call it, a popular neo-Nazi podcast. On the show, he regularly tells stories about being an EMT, often referring to patients by racist slurs and comparing black patients to animals. So this came to the attention of the company that he worked for and the counties that he serviced. There's more. After a 2-month investigation in which fellow employees were interviewed and patient care was investigated, the health department said, and I quote, "We're determined that there is no substantial evidence to support any violation of the EMS regulations and closed the case, even though he was a well-known white supremacist." I kid you not. I'll put another picture of him up. Now, this is a picture of him being grilled by the board, the supervising agency that really did go in on him. Now, he was exposed, he was investigated, the health department cleared him. There's more. McNabb, who unlike many in the white nationalist community, does not use an alias, made posts on social media showing himself in an EMT uniform. Let's show him also. Here's that uniform. In a recurring segment on the Daily Shoah, McNabb assumes a persona he calls Dr. Narcan. In these segments, he tells his co-host stories about being an EMT. He regularly refers to black patients as dentists, a deeply racist slur common among the alt-right. Let's put up another picture of this clown. McNabb, who by the way attended the deadly white supremacist rally in Charlottesville, Virginia in 2017, of course he did, has appeared on over 130 episodes of the Daily Shoah. Shoah is a Hebrew word for calamity and is used most commonly to refer to the Holocaust, according to research from Megan Squire, a computer science professor at Elon University, who studies the far right. Titles of these episodes include Jews Always Lie, Are You Ready for Some Race War, and Black Alert, Black Alert. Ladies and gentlemen, I bring this to your attention because the white supremacist McNabb was initially cleared and allowed to continue to provide healthcare service to those in that community. It took more people to get outraged by this. Now we have a new study that has come out showing that all the way up to medical doctors and people involved in healthcare distribution, they in fact engage in systemic racism. According to the research, if you have a white health professional and you are a black patient, you have a higher risk of dying. Damn. Let's bring the professor in on this. Professor, what are your thoughts about this?
Well, let me just say to start that I'm against racist EMTs. I'm against white supremacist EMTs. And as somebody who's a child of a Holocaust survivor, I'm against anti-Semitic EMTs. And so what I think is important about this case is here's a guy who's serving a public function, right? In other words, he could say, oh, it's the First Amendment, it doesn't matter. But this is somebody who's in many ways a public servant, just like a doctor, a policeman, a fireman. And what happened in this particular case is not just that he said all this horrible stuff, or that like many right ringers, they kind of co-opted, the Shoah is the Holocaust, right? So they're basically saying we're the victims of minoritized people, all this stuff. But the important thing in this case is he also started making claims that he was giving worse care to Black patients, right? So in a way, the divide between his online life, what he would say is his First Amendment right, and his job really became blurred. I mean, the kind of central part of this case is that he was saying he was using larger gauge needles in Black teens to draw blood, which is more painful and less effective. So there really was a spillover here between his kind of crazy online life and his job. And to me, that's the main point, is that, we live in a moment right now where people are saying horrible stuff online or nice stuff online. But in this case, to me, it was just kind of a slam dunk, because the minute it starts impacting what either your job or what you're claiming your job or how you're representing your job, number one, you're going to hurt people. And number two, it decreases public trust in, services that we all need, like EMTs.
Yeah, initially, he was cleared by the health department. He did eventually get fired by the board of supervisors, but he was able to remain on the job. He was able to remain getting a paycheck for months after it was exposed who he is. And even during the investigation and his testimony, he basically said that everything he says online should be protected by free speech, and that he's playing a character, even though the character that he made up, that he claims he made up, was closely related to the person he is in real life, an EMT worker who frequently has to care for Black patients and other minority groups. So yeah, he's out. However, the study is in, and the study shows that McNabb is not a silo. McNabb is part of a systemic culture in healthcare. Let me shift gears. This is a story that is heartbreaking, but something happened that can give you some hope. A racist caller attacked a 9-year-old Black child, called this child the N-word. This was a call that went to a restaurant that's Black owned. Residents of Alpine, California are rallying around a Black restaurant owner after a caller used racial slurs against the man's 9-year-old son. That photo was made public in Raw Story. We're going to show this precious young 9-year-old. Look at him. He's actually at his dad's business, learning the ropes, being the apprentice. Jakari J. Cousins, owner of Jay's Southern Cafe, told San Diego CBS affiliate that the incident occurred last week. Here's Jakari. And people love him in this community, by the way. So Mr. Cousins says, we received a call. How many N-words do you have in there? Now remember, this is a majority white community. So this caller says, how many N-words do you have in there? We can't come in and dine there, Cousin said. He commenced to call my son the N-word. We were totally shocked. We don't speak like that in our household. He goes on to say, it kind of knocked the wind out of me, Cousins added. I've explained to my children history, and you think history will be history. But there are individuals who are bitter, who walk around and have hatred. Now, here's the other side of this story that I actually appreciate. The white patrons of that business who go there on a regular basis, not every now and then, but every single week, they stepped up. The station reports that dozens of local residents flocked to the restaurant on Tuesday. not realizing it is closed this week in the wake of the incident. They included a group of older white women, Glenda, Susan, Mary, Betty, and Elizabeth, who go out to lunch together somewhere every week. Let's put up a picture of his restaurant. He's receiving a lot of love on social media. There's a GoFundMe that was set up. People are contributing because they want to show the love. And let me tell you why this story is important to highlight. How many times have we seen people commit acts of violence and then somebody sets up a GoFundMe account for them, and all of a sudden they become rich because they shot an unarmed person? So here's what I'm saying. In a sea of all of that madness, this is actually, at the end, a good story. It is a decent story about humanity stepping up and calling out others who do not fit the narrative that we're trying to push. And what is the narrative? The narrative is we celebrate diversity. We accept individuals as they are. We're not a racist nation. That's the narrative that we want to push. All right, Professor, you know this story. It is quite interesting because it started with a very racist individual attacking a 9-year-old kid, but it ended with white residents coming to the defense, not only of this restaurant, but of the defense of the black business owner.
Well, I mean, breaking news, a white person said something really racist. I mean, that happens, that happens a lot. And I guess the question is, I completely agree with you. What's the impact of this story, and what's the impact of a kind of story that goes viral? In other words, let's just imagine that for a month or 6 months or a year, people had been going in and supporting this business, and nothing had happened. They'd been supportive of this business. I have no idea. I have no idea. But we never would have heard of it, right? We never would have heard of it unless this one thing happened that we don't know how representative it is, but it does represent a bigger trend in society, which is somebody said something horrible and racist, and in this case, particularly egregious because it's to a kid. And I completely agree with you. That's the ethical moment right there, which is how do we respond as a country, as a nation, as people, as humans. And I think you're exactly right that in a way, these stories, whether or not they're representative, again, because social media does often tend to take the extreme example, that's the story that goes viral. But in this case, it's a challenge for us, not only in this one particular case. I mean, I want to go there and go to the restaurant. I want to go there and support it, but it's also like, what's the parable of this for our daily lives? How many microaggressions are happening around us on a daily level that this story can help us understand, and we're going to respond the same way if we see something like this that doesn't make it onto social media. So really, it's a challenge for society, and particularly so at this moment where the stakes are so high because of systemic racism, because of coronavirus, because of all the threats to our mortality right now. So really, this has to become a parable that people can use in their daily lives to say, I'm going to respond ethically when something like this happens in my life, even if it doesn't make it onto social media.
Very well said. And I want to make sure I'm very clear. America is in fact a racist country. That's a fact. Now, we would like to enjoy a narrative eventually where that's not the case, but you have to push against it. You have to make sure you challenge all of these notions of white supremacy, hyper and implicit racism, all of this systemic bias. So in this story, you literally have a group of individuals, and listen, they're not spring chickens, ladies and gentlemen, okay? All right, these individuals who came to the defense of this young black business owner, they are considered to be senior citizens. So you can't tell me that the generation is lost after a certain age. These women stepped up. And listen, they didn't just step up and say in some kind of private message or dropping a note in the mailbox. They went on the local news. They went on the local news and they stood there and they all defended not only the restaurant, but this black business owner and his child. And get this, that's one of the toughest things when it comes to racist in America. One of the toughest things is that a lot of white people who proclaim that they're not racist are afraid of other white racist people. That's a thing. That's a real thing for some people. And if you're willing to gauge your moral character, if you're willing to look for somebody else's permission to be moral, to be ethical, to be righteous, then you're not as good as you think you are. You really are not. Professor, what are your thoughts?
Well, I of course I completely agree with, and it actually links to the first story, which is on one hand, I think the challenge of this moment is that we all have an individual ethical response to reflect, change our practice, see where the inequity is in our lives. That's certainly part of it. But even thinking back to the first story about structural racism in medicine, some doctors are racist and they're doing stuff, and some doctors aren't racist and there's a racist outcome to their practice, right? That's the research I do. And that's because it's not just about individual racism in medicine or in where somebody can own a restaurant or everything like that. We live in a society that's very structurally racist. I'm thinking of the words of Stokely Carmichael in 1968, who said, "I don't care about the individual. Don't go around trying to change individuals' minds. For me, racism is the racism of the structure and the institution. It's zoning, redlining, school boards, things like that." And so part of this story is changing people's minds, calling out people, re-examining your own assumptions. But the other part of this is looking at the bigger structures, because let's be honest, we're always gonna have racist people. But if the structure makes it safer for people to have restaurants in different areas or have equal access to doctors or things like that, if we fix the structure, then I think these racist examples will have less power and valence than they do right now.
Professor, very well said. And I know you know that what you just described, you touched on critical race theory in this very moment. That critical race theory as a theoretical framework de-emphasizes individual racist and puts an emphasis on structural racism that can be codified in institutions, corporate norms, laws, statutes, ordinances, etc. And that's one of the challenges in our societal construct, that we are now living in a world, in an American culture, where somehow examination, questions have become bad. Literally, critical race theory poses an opportunity for an analysis, but it has now become so demonized that people are saying that it should be illegal.
Yeah, I mean, it's frustrating for people like me who have been studying. I mean, call it whatever you want. Like I study. The last book before Dying of Whiteness was a book about why Black men were overdiagnosed with schizophrenia. I found in my research that Black men were 5 to 7 times more likely to get overdiagnosed with schizophrenia. And when I interviewed the doctors, some of the doctors said, "Oh, we're racist or whatever," but others said, "I really want to help my patients." But they were also overdiagnosing schizophrenia in Black men, not because of their own individual attitudes, but because the diagnosis of schizophrenia led to the prison industrial complex, and the definition of schizophrenia changed, and all these other factors. And so there are always these bigger factors. And so for me, I always look at any number of kind of what's causing an inequity that shouldn't be there: COVID outcomes, police brutality, health outcomes. And for me, it's like, how do you explain that? And for me, I mean, pick up my books, Dying of Whiteness or Protest Psychosis. I've got a lot of data that shows that actually the structure dictates the individual outcome. And so it's weird for me that that's even controversial. I mean, I know it's a talking point and all this kind of stuff, but it's like we should want to fix structures and make them more equitable and have better outcomes. That's actually better for everyone, if we. That's right. So that's kind of my take, is like, let's fix the structures, not like, go to war on this theory.
Well said, Doc. We got more on the other side. It's indisputable, stick and stay.
I went to Kentucky Fried Chicken when I had first got my license, like 17 years old or 17, 18, whatever it was. And I'm driving, I think, my dad's Oldsmobile. And I parked it in a place where there was 2 cars next to me, really tight spot, and a car behind me. I don't even know how I got in there, because I'm a terrible driver. Back then I was an even worse driver. And on the roads I'm okay, but in parking spots I have terrible spatial reasoning and I'm a mess. And on my way out, I hit all 3 cars at once. I broke all records, okay? So I went, as I'm backing out, I went boom, oh and this side hit that car, this side hit this car, and the back hit the 3rd car, okay? and I got stuck. I didn't know how to get out. Like I went, okay, for this, and then I'm like, no, and then, right? And then finally I had to stop, go inside the KFC and go, I'm sorry, I hit a bunch of your cars. They're like, what do you mean a bunch of your cars? I'm like, I don't know.
Wow, there's a B?
Yeah, I'm like this, I hit 3 cars, I don't know. So you guys gotta come help me, okay? Okay, so one, my bad, really sorry about that. Okay, number 2, can someone take my car out? Because I don't wanna keep hitting your cars, and I'm incapable of taking it out of this spot.
Now baby, move that fat, baby, move that fat. Out.
Hi, I'm Brett Ehrlich with Breaking News with Brett Ehrlich. This is Breaking News with Brett Ehrlich. Hi, Brett Ehrlich here. According to EPA head Scott Pruitt, climate change is not happening. He cited a meme on Facebook he saw. When pressed to back up this source, he said it must be accurate because the watermark said it was made by a scientist. So, your move, Truth.
Do all of you know the Young Turks?
An outlet like yourself that are willing to cover this story from the very beginning and that weren't afraid to say, hey, this is something that is legitimate.
And this is why what Cenk and the Young Turks are doing is so important.
Brent Welder is very progressive Democrat. He's a just Democrat, in fact, uncorrupted, not going to take big corporate PAC money. When did you start watching the show and when did you become a member?
So I've been watching for 10 years, an active viewer, but also more importantly, getting out there with causes like Wolfpack.
By the end of our campaign, we had organized about 22,000 individual contributions with an average about $27 a piece. And those initial people were a lot of TYT supporters as well.
In looking at the world in a very different way than corporate media does.
It takes those early people who believe that can really be the seeds of this movement, and that has been the Young Turks.
Thank you, Cenk Uygur of the Young Turks.
Thank you to TYT and all the progressives around the country that have our backs.
You know, the first and only interviews that we had tonight to be with the Young Turks as well, because you guys have been here from the very beginning, and that's what this night is all about.
And I thank Cenk very much for the very good work that he does.
Thank you so much for all in this together, and the people are so powerful, and we're gonna get it done.
Thank you for your constant support.
It's a pleasure to be with rebels. I like that.
For all of the help that you've given to the Just Democrats, to Wolfpack, to help fellow progressives, thank you guys, to all the Young Turks members that make it possible.
Hey, this is Edwin. Most of you might recognize me, well, not me, mostly my laugh from the main show.
I mean, it's gonna be hard to get the Uygur maneuver on him.
And today, my talent is Rubik's Cubes. You gotta forgive me, it's been at least 5 years since I've competed. So that's why I'm actually going pretty slow. Watch this.
Welcome back. Okay, we got a lot of viewer comments. Let me read as many as I can. TYT member Carson is a lying mother Tucker. Says, how can the board initially see the facts about this guy and conclude that he is a good enough steward of the agency to keep his job? What led them to believe he's capable of objectively providing life support for minority patients? I have no freaking idea. Mickey C, the silver-haired dragon, says he's been fired. Now, have they investigated his past patient losses or further damage done to them? Well, according to the initial investigation, they were supposed to investigate any kind of misconduct. I'm not sure if they really went far enough. YouTube super chat, law school stud says, love Dr. Metzel and Dr. Ritchie. On top of being a great researcher and overall great guy, did you know Jonathan Metzel is an amazing softball player too? Is that true, Doc?
I think my softball team is watching this show right now, so
I love it.
I paid him $20 to say that.
Well, that's cheap, man.
Yeah.
All right, Jill Wagner says enough. I'm sick of hearing the BS with the vaccines. Lost the love of my life because of the conspiracy theories being pushed. Get vaccinated. Jill, I'm so sorry to hear that, and keep spreading the message so that you can empower others to the right information, okay? Deidre Dragon, I work as an MA at a free clinic, and there was a racist volunteer there. It was a horrible nightmare situation. We mostly took care of undocumented patients, and he finally got ousted. Isn't that something? Relaine says, this has been a sad reality for Black folks for many years, talking about racist EMT workers for many years, and people still don't believe us when we speak on doctors, healthcare workers mistreating us. Yep, 9-year-old. Tempest Perham says, that's how we learn about racism. Mom, why did this kid say not to touch me because of my skin color? Mom, why are they looking at us like that? Yeah, and once again, this 9-year-old had to be exposed to this kind of extreme racism, and he loses some of his innocence in that process. Marco Antonio says, I live there. If I lived there, I'd order something right now. Yeah, good stuff. Twitch, per 4TYT. Hi, Dr. Richie. Great to have you share my day. Always makes my days. Thank you so very much, and thank you. Jennifer Convertibles. That is so disgusting, talking about what happened with the 9-year-old. That kid isn't even allowed to keep their joy and innocence. There you have it. Ladies and gentlemen, you know what we do. We cover the Karens of the world because Karens are dangerous. I wish a Karen would.
You want to call the police on them for having a barbecue on a Sunday.
I feel free. Back off!
I'm going to tell them there's an African-American man threatening my life.
Hey, what are you doing there? Hey.
Yes.
Yes. Why are you taking pictures of my car?
I'm with the HOA, and an unlicensed car is not allowed to be parked in the driveway. It has to be in the garage, or it could be covered with a car cover.
Okay.
So I just wanted to.
And your name is what?
Eager, and I left you some Charwell information.
Correct.
And so there's some information there. You can go online and sign the documents that say that.
I appreciate you not creeping around my house.
Well, I tried to come and knock on your door, so just letting you know.
And then take a picture of my tag, and
I will not submit the tag number, but I will have to submit the expiration.
Okay. I thought you guys did all that stuff from the curb and weren't coming onto people's property.
Well, it's pretty obvious that you backed the car in. So.
Well, actually, that's how they dropped it off when I asked them to tow it. So.
Okay. Well.
Do you have a job?
Yeah. Yes, I work from home.
Okay. Cool. All right. Well, thanks for letting me know.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah, she has a job. She's a full-time Karen. The Karenicity in this one runs deep. Now remember, she is with the HOA. And because she's with the HOA, she is obviously empowered with these certain rights. Maybe he is in violation of some HOA rule, but she's literally in violation of a criminal law. You cannot trespass on the property of others. You can't do that. And she's citing the HOA rule. While yes, she's in violation of the criminal statute of trespass, she's also in violation of the HOA rules, which says that you have to observe from outside of the property. So let's count the ways here. She's in violation of her own rules at the HOA. She's in violation of an actual criminal statute, and she is going to be courteous. And she said, I'm not going to put your tag number out there, but I have to put the expiration date. Professor, you know a little something about the behavior of individuals. What's at the core of these Karens, brother?
I think what we're seeing now is a kind of behavior that, going back to the last segment, has been going on for a long time, right? There's nothing new if you've been the victim or the target of this kind of behavior, which is kind of holier than thou virtue signaling with a profound racial overtone that basically reinforces the kind of ideologies of a dominant group against minoritized groups. We see this a lot, and it's been going on for a long time. And I think what's good about calling attention to this and the attention that it's gotten is, number one, don't do that anymore, because you're gonna end up on Indisputable. You're gonna end up somewhere. So number one is like, this behavior is not okay anymore. But I think that in a way, this kind of calling out is what it takes, right? Because I think that it's hard. I mean, this case, that was idiotic, no doubt about it. But there's a bunch of them that don't end up, getting recorded and stuff like that. And so I think, again, that it's really a parable to kind of say that what's acceptable behavior and unacceptable behavior have changed, and we learn it through these kind of things, and that actually not acting this way is better for everybody in a particular way. And so in that sense, I think there's a bigger lesson, and we see that a lot. I mean, maybe things that Governor Cuomo thought he was doing 20 years ago are not acceptable now. Maybe things that other leaders thought they were doing before. So mores change, and it takes stories like this to basically say that might have been okay before, but it's not okay now. And really, hopefully, that leads more broadly to changed behavior. But of course, you also can't help but think that if somebody acted like this and they weren't a white woman, what response would they get if they walked on and started to take a picture of your car? So of course, there's also the counter parable, which is who gets to walk on your property and not get the cops called on them or arrested or hauled away. So all these things, again, that really make us think that we're learning something about how to re-engage in the public sphere, and hopefully it leads to a better outcome. But in the meantime, stop doing it.
Yeah, public embarrassment, public shame can lead to a social transformation of behavior. We've seen it happen in tort law, what's acceptable and not acceptable to now what's normative. We've also seen it happen in social advocacy. Dr. King had a simple philosophy. His philosophy was, I have to expose what they're doing through the media in order to transform public perception, thus transforming the reality of policy. But in order to get there, you had to have an exposure of the egregious behavior. So it was a strategy connected to that. Doc, I got a treat for you, double dose.
You want to call the police on them for having a barbecue on a Sunday.
I feel free. Back off.
I'm going to tell them there's an African-American man threatening my life.
Eternity.
Really?
I'm just trying to help you.
I'm sorry, but I don't need your help.
Yes, you do. You do need my help, sir. Can't you see that, you son of a bitch?
Could you please just let me check out my groceries?
I'm trying to help you.
Wow, this is...
You gotta ask Jesus Christ.
I don't have to do anything.
We're all sinners.
Okay.
He's not gonna force you to do it.
You're sinning right now.
No, I'm not. Are you accuser? Get the out of here, you accuser. You accuser. Get the out of here.
Wow.
You accuser. Accuser of the brethren, you.
Excuse me.
Yes, ma'am.
Can I ask you what's going on?
I'm pissed because you won't repound.
Okay.
I just want to get some groceries and go home.
So, because his religious views don't match yours, you're mad at him?
I don't give a because it's gonna burn in hell.
Okay. Then why?
And you are too, bitch. If you don't have Jesus Christ as your savior, you're gonna be down there with them, screaming in holy terror, fire and brimstone. Do you get it?
Yeah, totally understand.
I don't want you to burn in hell for all. You know what that's who you're mind.
That is my choice in life.
You all better repent, because the kingdom of heaven is at hand.
This is what happens when you go all the way white Jesus. White Jesus is a fictional character. He was never white. But I promise you, there are some things I can conclude about this person. She believes in white Jesus. She voted for Donald Trump. That's it. Ladies and gentlemen, there's so much more. This is not only a throwback Karen, but this is a serial Karen. This first video was in New Haven, Michigan. It was posted back in 2020, where you see all of that happening at the checkout. In these videos from early 2020, she was originally known as Religious Rita because she unleashed her religious fury on anyone she believed was in need of salvation. Now this video, different location in the Michigan area, she was harassing a Muslim man or somebody she assumed so. Here it is.
You're not going to get 72 virgins if you marry. Why? Could you imagine a man and a woman who are married? And the man.
He's trying to, but she's harassing him.
The woman is in love with him. The guy murders himself. He gets 72 virgins. What does she get out of it? Huh? Does she get 72 in her mouth? Is that what she gets?
Does Jesus use her language? Does Jesus use her language? Does Jesus use her language?
True or not? Does the Quran say that you're going to get 72 virgins if you marry yourself? Is that true? Because what is the woman now? The woman that you married, and you marry her, and you love her. Do you know what's going to happen to you unless you repent and ask Jesus Christ to forgive
Maybe
you
you
for
should
your
ask
sins?
Jesus Christ.
You
should ask all the gods.
There's more. Believe it or not, there is a lot more. Christina Love Karen was arrested for her behavior in these two cases. And at the time it was reported, she was facing a disturbing the peace charge. According to one report, the woman had a string of encounters with the police around the time going back to December 4th, 2019, a list of 34 contacts with law enforcement, including traffic infractions going back to 2011. But as I said, there's more. A garbage truck incident. She had scheduled for 4 garbage bags to be picked up by a garbage truck. Okay, simple enough. When the truck arrived, they grabbed the 4 bags and left the rest, which was not in bags. Okay, we understand that. She saw he left garbage items and tried to chase down the garbage truck in her car, and she cut him off in traffic. Here's what happened.
So deep, I can't even help now. What's your driver's license number?
I don't have to give that to you.
Let me see your driver's license.
You're not a police officer.
You just hit my vehicle.
Man.
Give me your driver's license.
You pulled right out in front of me.
Yeah, and when someone pulls in front of you because there's an emergency, you slow your rear end down and you stop.
Okay, these
Have
are
you
not
ever had someone have an emergency?
These are not
and pull in
cars.
front of you?
These are not cars. They don't stop on a dime.
It doesn't matter. You have to be far enough behind.
You know what? I'm going to tell you the whole
You should
incident.
have picked up my trash, big boy.
I picked up your trash.
No, you didn't. You want to go see what you left?
I left the carpeting and the
You're
bedding.
supposed to pick up everything.
Nope, 4 bags.
Yeah.
Is what your service
Oh,
is
you
for.
are in so much
And
deep
last
crack.
week I
Well, you
picked
wait
up
till
more
your
than
boss
you, too.
tells you what you
He's
got
on
to
his
pick up.
way here, too,
You
man.
think you get to decide what you pick up and what
No,
you don't?
it's what you ordered.
You little twerp.
It's what you ordered.
You little twerp. I know what I ordered.
Okay.
And you're going to pay.
Okay.
Yeah, baby. You like your job? You like it?
Yeah, I do.
Yeah, well, good luck, because you ain't going to have it. Pass today, baby. When someone has an emergency and they pull in front of you, you slow down and you stop, boy.
I tried to slow down.
You didn't try hard enough, baby.
These don't stop
you
on a
slammed
dime.
into the back of me.
These don't stop on a
Well,
dime,
you should
man.
know that. You should have picked
You
up my
didn't give me
trash.
time. You didn't give me time.
4 days. You were only supposed to have 4 days.
That was actually an impressive chicken impression, by the way. So in that last one, this Karen, she literally chased him down, got in front of this driver, caused an accident, and then you saw the rest. Professor, this one goes deep. These are the videos that we have access to.
Yeah, she's not well, right? And so I think that, I first want to say, having just seen these videos the first time along with a lot of other people, I mean, it's amazing. People showed a lot of restraint in these videos. And so part of the story is like, this person's up in your face, she's yelling, doing all this stuff. And certainly, I mean, again, I'm not knowing what else happened or things like that, but this was, very, very aggressive, very hostile. And again, I'll go back to the question we were thinking about before, which is, what does that tell us? In other words, is this a representative of some bigger thing, right? And I think the important thing to note about these kind of videos is that on one hand, this is a very extreme example, right? I don't think you could get away with that kind of behavior in a lot of places. You certainly couldn't. I'm in New York. Try that in a more kind of liberal city or something like that. But I also think it's important to note that she's propagating a dominant ideology. In other words, these videos have valence because this is a white person, talking about a Christian ideology. This is the dominant thing. And so I always wonder, what if she was a person of color acting this way? What would the response be? What if myself? What if she was telling everybody to convert to Judaism? What if she told people to convert to Raelianism? That we're all from spaceships or something like that. And so, in a way, I guess the question is, what's the line between aggression and mental illness, right? And it has to do with these bigger ideologies in a way. But in general, those are, honestly, I'm a psychiatrist. Those are some pretty disturbing videos, honestly.
Yeah, and what's deep about it is it seems as if she understands right and wrong in the context of when she was approached by the cashier, if you remember, she completely cut off the argument, said yes ma'am very calmly to the cashier, and then when the cashier said something she did not like, she engaged once again in that extreme aggression. And really, I don't understand how religious bigotry is at the core of your evangelism. If you're really trying to authentically evangelize what you believe, and this is just me, maybe I'm old fashioned, but you do it in way of the example that you set for others. All right, we got more on the other side. It's indisputable. Stick and stay.
You're about to watch some behind the scenes footage of the Young Turks. Ooh. Now these are partial videos. If you want to get all of them, you become a member, go to tyt.com/join, and you'll get all the behind the scenes of me, Anna, John, JR, a little bit reality show like. tyt.com/join and enjoy this.
You know what you're seeing behind me? Jersey, hold. Watch me flip this camera. However I flip it. Do I flip it like this? No, I just took a picture. I'm bitzing right now.
What?
Behind the scenes.
Oh, okay. For members? I don't have my face on.
She doesn't have her face on, folks. Oh, that's JR's ass right there.
You can't take 5 minutes off, can you?
No, I can't, Johnny. Bye. I said it was live stream, but I was lying. It's not a live stream. It's just for members. Bitsy, this is my cat. You know what his name is? Kiki Cat.
Animals are innocent.
Control room and the insanity is obviously there.
Right now, as you can see, I'm directing or tech directing.
I'm so happy to be here.
This is what like a Labor Day beard looks like for Jank. Man, you're a Young Turks viewer if you recognize me like this.
Oh, thank you. You are the one person in my life I would love to meet.
What's going on, guys? This is a Bitsy or a BTS or behind the scenes with Hassan Piker, AKA Woke Bay.
Oh, hi, I didn't see you there.
I have finished my show, The Damage Report, and now I get into a really awkward time of the day.
When I'm sitting, the control room is right there. So I can see Bart.
This is the Pittsburgh office, by the way. I refer to often as the boiler room.
You see how it's ripped? Is it super unprofessional to wear that at a business meeting? Or am I like cool rebel?
I just finished doing the power panel and I'm fired up.
What do you do for TYT?
Not a whole lot.
If you're frantically tweeting at us that something's broken, thank you, because I'm fixing it.
And thank you for being a TYT member.
Super last thing, because there's always got to be a super last thing. Oh, that was disastrous. This has been behind the scenes, behind the scenes.
All right, welcome to Dr. Rashad Richard Indisputable. This is going to be quite interesting. I don't know if you can handle this much truth on any day of the week. The unrest inside of the black community and communities that support them. It's because these cops are not held accountable. You have a family calling 911, and that family is expecting help, not expecting their loved one to be killed by the very people they pay to protect and serve them. Did you ever notice a cop that you work with call any black person the N-word or target people because they were black? Nope. But we disagree that somehow police officers are not also subject to the same systemic biases and racism as any other level of law enforcement.
It sounds like for everybody's need who wants to crucify the cops without looking at it.
No, we crucify bad cops, brother. Bad cops.
That we don't need the government to step into our lives, mandating that we should be wearing a mask.
You think you putting on a mask, Trey, is government intrusion, but you don't think the government telling a woman what she can or cannot do with her body it isn't government intrusion.
Where does life begin?
You want to go there? I can read it to you, bro.
You seem very well prepared. Certainly more.
Of course, why would I not be well prepared? They don't stop, I don't stop. Racism won't stop, I won't stop. Systemic bias won't stop, I won't stop. People still need health care, so I won't stop. People still need criminal justice systems reform throughout this country, so I won't stop, and you won't stop either.
Climate is changing fundamentally, extremely, and non-linearly. It's becoming worse now. It's not when the levees burst that is the problem. It's in the anticipation of that.
So I hope every human being is safe. And by human beings, I do not include multinational corporations, especially the ones that started climate change in the first place.
What we're currently doing right now in cutting emissions is clearly not enough. There will be ramifications to what Trump is doing. I don't want people to suffer, but I feel like there's gonna be a lot of suffering because we have an imbecile as our leader.
Welcome back, it's Indisputable. We got a lot of your comments, let's get to it. TYT member Mickey C. the Silver Hair Dragon says, laughing my effing A off. Love this good Christian woman's language. Nothing I don't use myself, but then I don't proclaim to be a good Christian woman. Felicia, hi, Dr. Richie. Professor Metzel is a great guest. Thank you, TYT. That's right, he's awesome. Dope dude. Super chat, Kelly O'Hara says, Doctor, tell me the news. I've got a bad case of Karen Blues. Oh, Kelly with her poems. And thank you, I did receive the email. I appreciate that. I may make a collection if you keep them coming, okay? Tiger Katsune says, the HOA comes into our property too. They were looking for dog droppings, then harassed my mother. We're black, the HOA here is white. Seems racist. Seems like they need to get the hell up off your property. That's what it seems like to me. Okay, sorry that's happening to you. R. King Juan Garcia, she thinks she's going to heaven with that potty mouth. Yeah. Forbesilla says she's got a mental problem, doc, and possible Tourette's by her inability to not be able to control her speech. I don't know. I don't know. I don't think that's it, Doc. You're the mental health expert. Is that Tourette's, in your opinion, based on observation?
Well, I think we can all say that it's not normal to like roll on the ground and do the chicken cluck.
Right.
But I would say that it's very hard to diagnose people you don't know, and so I usually refrain from doing it. But I will say that that's not Tourette's.
That's not Tourette's. Okay.
Yeah. Okay.
All right. Charles Massey, to the chicken Karen, meth is a hell of a drug. That's another diagnosis that you can't make, Doc. Okay. But obviously Charles can, by the way. Okay. All right. Thank you, Charles. Rick Moore. I don't pay bills on the property, but I'm going to tell you where to put your vehicle. I know that's right. You don't pay nothing on this damn property. The hell are you doing here? Okay, ladies and gentlemen, a Detroit cop punches a man in the face. A Michigan cop was caught on camera punching an unarmed man in the face and seemingly knocked him out cold. Before we show the video, let me describe what led up to it. Police are shown beating up a man in an orange mask on the side of the building. Here's that pic, okay? That's scene one. We will call that scene one. Scene two, the man in the orange and blue shirt sees this and tries to intervene. He's being a good Samaritan. He's trying to help. It's very clear in the footage. This person is not the aggressor against police officers. He's trying to help. An officer shoves the good Samaritan to the ground. Okay, we got it. And ladies and gentlemen, this is what happens next.
I ain't got to do that, dog. Oh my Lord.
So sad. If you blink, you would have missed it. Horrific. The interim chief says the officers will be given due process and a report will go to the Wayne County prosecutor. If it could turn into criminal charges for the police, if this was unprovoked police brutality. The officer who threw the punch is now on desk duty. The other officers remain on the job. No officers, none of them have been suspended during the investigation for now. None of them have been suspended. It is clear it was unprovoked. Professor, what are your thoughts here?
Two thoughts. Number one, that's police brutality. Punching somebody unprovoked, knocking them out cold like that, it's just pretty clear cut, seems to me. And given that we're having a national referendum, like really a soul searching on how to keep communities safe, what right and wrong policing are, that's not it, right? And so partially, it's the same thing, right? Given what the world we live in right now, police can't do that. And the fact that it was caught on tape really, again, makes us think: what are the other versions of this that haven't been caught on tape, right? That just happened somebody was filming that, but that doesn't happen. And so, really, I think it's important to highlight and say this is really not okay. And maybe we thought it was before, in our twisted system, but right now, it's pretty clear cut. So number one, that is really just bad policing, right? You just can't be doing that. And so that's part of it, I think. And the other part is just, what do we do with these stories, right? How does a story like this help us get to where we want to go, which is, if this is bad policing, what's good policing, right? What do we want policing to look like? And so when stories like this call attention to egregious examples like this, it's also an opportunity for us to define, okay, here's a better way, right? The answer to this is not this kind of relationship between police and communities. I guess the last point for me is, again, in my book on schizophrenia, I found that Black doctors were just as likely as white doctors to overdiagnose schizophrenia in Black men. The implication wasn't that it was a white doctor doing this racist thing to Black patients. It was actually the role of what it meant to be a doctor, putting on the white coat, you were stepping into this structure that was racialized. And so what I found in my research is the race of the doctor almost didn't matter. And so it's interesting in this example, because this is a Black policeman, it looked like, who threw that punch. And so in a way, it's not just about one racist person. What that suggests is it's the framework of what it means to be a policeman, this kind of adversarial thing. So it's not just like, let's weed out one individual. It's that there's some kind of structural issue that is about what it means to be a policeman, independent of the skin color of the police officer.
And that's why you de-emphasize the individual and you examine it through a structural lens based on that assessment. Okay, next story. Imagine you are a real estate agent, you got a client's son is there, you're showing a property, that's your job, and cops pull guns on you because neighbors think black people, nice house, must be robbing the place. That's exactly what happened to a black real estate agent, his client, and the client's teenage son. They were handcuffed. They were held at gunpoint during the showing of a Michigan home on Sunday, August 1st, after a neighbor called 911 to report a break-in. Here's a picture of the victims, Brown and Roy Thorne. They're the victims here. Realtor Eric Brown and his client Roy Thorne were at a home with Thorne's 15-year-old son. What a hell of a lesson to learn for a 15-year-old child. When they noticed a growing police presence outside the house, the men say officers were pointing guns at the house and ordered his son, and ordered them to exit the home single file with their hands raised. Brown, Thorne, and his son were held at gunpoint until they were placed in handcuffs. After Brown showed his credentials, proving that he was a realtor showing the home, Wyoming officers apologized and let the trio go. They provided an explanation, and here it is. Police said they were responding to a neighbor's 911 call and have defended officers' actions, saying proper protocol was followed. The Wyoming Department of Public Safety takes emergency calls such as this seriously, and officers rely on their training and department policy in their response. Captain Timothy Pohl said the race didn't play a role in the incident. The department was responding to a call for service. There wasn't a racist element. But here's what you may want to do. If somebody calls 911 and says, hey, people are breaking into this home, maybe you ask a few questions like, is the home occupied at the moment? Is this home for sale? Could it be a real estate agent? How do you know they're breaking into the home? Did you see forced entry? Simple questions. Brown said he would have been treated differently if he were white. I agree with him, and expressed concern about showing homes in the future if people would see him and call the police on a whim again. And am I just automatically the criminal? Because that's pretty much how we were treated in that situation. That officer came back and apologized again, but at the same time, the damage is done. My son was a little disturbed. He hasn't seen anything like that. He's not going to forget this. And let me correct the record. Sir, I work with young people. Your son is not a little bit disturbed. He's really disturbed. He may not express to you verbally how disturbed he is. It may come out in other ways. Doctor, you got some background with this?
Yeah, I mean, a couple things. Of course, this is implicit bias 101, right? You see somebody's skin color, you assume, and the reason this story has so much valence is because it links to other stories that even have worse outcomes than this. A young black man goes jogging through a neighborhood. Do you assume he's a burglar and citizens shoot him or police find? So in a way, this story is given so much weight because it ties into so many other stories that have horrible outcomes like this or much worse outcomes. Again, I'll just say as my final point that we're in a moment now where everything is up for grabs. We're in a very existential, urgent moment. And this is a time for us to highlight and call attention to these kind of stories. And for the betterment of everyone, really change society. Really, that's the lesson of the aftermath of the murder of George Floyd. That's the aftermath of what we're learning in the pandemic, which is, believe it or not, if we create a more equitable society, if we close the racial wealth gap, if we create health equity, society is going to work better for all of us. And then stories like this are going to be the exception and not the rule.
Doctor, Vanderbilt is lucky to have you. Please tell everyone how they can follow you, get access to your remarkable book or books.
I'm on Twitter 24/7. Just look at me at Jonathan Metzl, or my book is Dying of Whiteness. Just dyingofwhiteness.com. But just get me through Twitter. I'll write you right back. So take care.
It has been a pleasure. Thank you so much for being on Indisputable, Doc.
Take care. Bye-bye.
All right, we got more on the other side. Stick and stay. The bullpen is next.
So a lot of progressive office holders are doing something fun. I like fun. They're doing the last 2 years in 2 minutes. Okay, we're gonna try it here. First, I wanna let you guys know about the years before that. Hey, remember we started the Just Democrats here on the Young Turks. It was officially launched on our air, basically by you guys. And then we featured AOC, we featured Cori Bush, and Ro Khanna became the first ever Just Democrat incumbent, all on the Young Turks. Now, the last 2 years have been a spectacular follow-up to that. So let's put the 2 minutes on the clock and do this. Young Turks got to start back in 2002, and I think we've been an important part of the progressive movement ever since. What we mainly do is amplify the progressive voice and candidates out there, and I think we've done a pretty good job. Right now, we're currently #1 most engaged news politics network online, beating CNN, Fox News, and MSNBC, all of them. We're #1 in total minutes watched. That means not only the number of people watching, but how long they watch. We just crossed 20 million followers and 500 million monthly views. Now, why? That's because actually the country's progressive. It's 2/3 progressive. And you guys have allowed us to be your voice, and we're incredibly thankful for that. So what did we do with that voice? Well, let's look at 2019. We went all over the country talking to you guys and the candidates. So we were in Miami, we were in Detroit, we were in Houston, and we were in Iowa. In fact, we were all over Iowa. You guys were all over Iowa, and all of the candidates saw you guys. We had wonderful people speaking, like the one and only Nina Turner at our rallies. Bernie Sanders stopped by, Andrew Yang, Elizabeth Warren. We interviewed almost everyone on the campaign trail, with the exception of Biden and Buttigieg. And we held them accountable. We even did a progressive economic pledge, and so many wonderful people signed on to that. Bernie Sanders, Warren, Marianne Williamson, AOC, the entire squad, Justice Democrats, and so many others. Now, on top of all that, we started a show called The Conversation, where we featured so many progressive thinkers, writers, and candidates. And one of the candidates we featured in 2019 was Jamal Bowman. Here comes Jamal Bowman. Then we had an amazing 2020. We hired a climate reporter. Damage Report passed 500,000 subscribers. Young Turks passed 5 million subscribers. We're getting the message out to more and more people. Bernie Sanders comes on in the heat of the primary. He comes on after the election to say what we're gonna do for the future. And then Marie Newman wins. Jamal Bowman wins. Cori Bush wins. And then just when you thought it couldn't get any better, here comes Nina Turner. Hello, somebody. And she's running for Congress, and she comes on the Young Turks first. On election week, we had nearly 2 million hours of viewing. We're #1 destination for progressives. You made all that happen. This is amazing, and thank you for those 2 years. What, I went past 2 minutes? Of course!
Viewers had asked for an interview with the TYT Lizard. Mr. Lizard. Oh, you changed colors today. Nice. I don't even know how you feel about us. Do you even like us?
Well, you guys made me this awesome house, so I'm kind of in your debt. I was found outside on the street, and you gave me a home. Granted, it was a really crappy home for a while, but then through the power of fundraising, I became a person who has a multi-level Trump-style mansion.
You do. By the way, you never looked better, man. Normally, you're just green or just brown, but today you're in mid-lizard, right?
I'm not very smart. I'm a lizard, so I don't know how the science works. I guess this is just my mood. It's not every day that thresholds like this are broken. I'm just so excited. I can't contain my pigmentation.
And now you're showing it off.
Yep.
Yeah, I've never seen the lizard like this before.
Welcome back. Okay, we got a lot of viewer comments. Let me read as many as I can. Thank you all for always chiming in. And don't forget, after the show, reactions with Ravana. Make sure you do that. All right, TDL viewers, switch to Indisputable TYT. Always make that happen as well. And follow us on social media, Indisputable TYT. That's Twitter, that's Instagram. Just make it happen, all right? Okay, TYT member Danielle Labique, I think. Hi, Dr. Richie. It is always great to see you. Thank you for sharing that care and doing the chicken dance. It had me laughing my effing A off. And it's been a rough week with Nina losing. So this is exactly what I needed from me and my bro, Dave Schmidt. We love you, Doc. And I love you back. Let me just remind you, because I was on TYT calling that election, had a remarkable time doing that, but it hit me as well. Nina Turner is one of the most dynamic individuals in America. That's period. We're lucky that she even wants to be involved in politics. But I want to remind you that there is no finality with democracy. You always get another opportunity, okay? Just remember that. All right, YouTube, super chat. Bunny Pop, dude was backing up and they followed after him just to punch him. WTF, I know. Larry Billup says they should have asked questions beforehand. Exactly, talking about the realtor. Our Future Now says, why the hell couldn't they just walk up and knock on the door? I know, right? And just say, hey, what's going on here? Grumpy Cat, thank you, Dr. Metzel. He was great, wasn't he? Twyla Netsky says, folks, Google the name of the book and you can get a good preview of it. All right, Rose Jackson, I will buy his book. Cool. Twyla says, again, I think the two docs make the best team yet. I could watch you two all day, perfect compliment to one another. He's a dope dude, isn't he? For real. Mike Boy Raps. I think it should be accepted that pulling guns on unarmed civilians is bad 100% of the time. Yeah, and then you got children involved and they're walking out with hands on their head in a single line and they're working and looking at a home. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the bullpen. All right, in the bullpen today, we have Andrew Ragusa, real estate investor, and he's going to talk about the eviction moratorium extension. He's making a case against it. Should be an interesting conversation. Andrew, thank you for being on Indisputable. How are you?
Dr. Richie, thank you so much for having me on the show. I'm very grateful for the opportunity.
Absolutely. I don't want to presume what you believe or know about the eviction moratorium. So if you would, give us some of your context to your belief as it relates to the moratorium.
Sure. So I'm a big proponent of trying to get everyone back to normalcy. I think everybody wants to get back to society being somewhat the way it was prior to the coronavirus being around. And I think a big cog in that machine is going to be bringing the eviction moratorium to an end so that people can get back to the give and take relationship that is supposed to be taking place between landlord, tenant, and that entire scenario.
Okay, now I don't agree that the moratorium is the end all solution because literally by definition, and by policy design, it only kicks the can down the road. But I do think it's part of the solution. Now, would you agree that the moratorium utilized at least as a stopgap measure during the height of COVID-19 and what was happening to the American workforce, it was actually a good idea that could have been done better?
Absolutely. At the time the moratorium was put into place, it was the appropriate action to protect Americans, to protect people. It was absolutely necessary. My only argument here is that during this present time scenario where we have a labor shortage and people are saying that they can't find help, industry needs people to help with manufacturing, businesses are looking for more workers and they're offering more pay than before. In this scenario, it's time to start bringing back some accountability on both ends of that landlord-tenant relationship to move us forward. Because if there's jobs, you should be able to pay that mortgage.
Well, here's the ecosystem problem that you have right there. And I understand what you're proposing. But when you already existed in a system structure that did not pay the bills, meaning you had a job, but your job doesn't pay the mortgage, well, it becomes even more pronounced when now you're behind on your mortgage.
Absolutely.
And the moratorium simply says, let's accrue your mortgage responsibility. And all of a sudden you owe $20,000, $30,000, $40,000 at one time. And you were barely able to work that job and pay the bill that was in front of you. Now you've had a disruption of that. So what's the solution in that scenario, brother?
Well, I completely agree with you. The system was broken to begin with. And I think a big reason for that is because people in the millennial generation specifically have all been sold the big lie. And the lie is college would get you a good paying job. And it's just not the case, because plenty of people have went to school, buried themselves in debt, and then came out missing skills, missing things that could make them marketable in the workforce. But there is a solution in place. The beautiful thing about America is that you can do anything. I know 20-year-olds who love Instagram so much, he started a marketing company. And now that guy makes $35,000 a month just managing other people's Instagram accounts. I know people who are able to create wealth for themselves simply because their mindset set them free. And that does not mean that it's only available for a few, it's available for those who believe they can.
Okay, so brother, let me tell you the problem in your analysis. You are assuming that your microcosm can explain the macrocosm. So let me give you some statistical data as it relates to college and technical training. Sure. I agree with you that everybody doesn't have to go to college. Okay, I support technical education. I work with the technical education programs. Right. But when you take away programs to give you access to those programs, you are working against the reality, the cause and effect dynamic associated with actual training and the workforce. Not necessarily a college degree, even though statistically, if you have a college degree, you make more money. That still is a real statistic. That's a reality every day. If you have technical training, you can make more money. But if you are saying, here's your solution, you have to get this specialized training. And at the same time, there's an effort to eliminate the funding so that you can have access to this specialized training or technical education, then does it not work against itself, brother, when we both know that is the solution for a better paid, more trained workforce?
Absolutely. I don't think we should get away with anything that enables people access to education. My only request here would be to get access to better quality data. Because the reality is that if the education and the data that we're receiving in this generation was good, we wouldn't be buried in financial debt. We wouldn't be in the situation that we're in where you're not employable. I went to college and I got a bachelor's and master's degree, came out looking for a job, and no one would give it to me. And it was just at that time they were saying, oh, there's plenty of unemployment going on right now, and not a lot of people were hiring. But for some reason, other people were getting jobs and I wouldn't. I actually got my real estate license thinking I would do this temporarily, and then I saw what was possible, and I decided to take the bull by the horns and just keep going. And 6 years later, I find myself investing in real estate and helping other people do the same. I actually teach people how to become realtors. Yeah. So I really believe that with the right kind of mindset, you can set yourself free. And all I'm asking is that the data that people learn become better and more accountable.
I think you kind of contradicted your own argument. You said that you were unemployable with an undergraduate and graduate degree, but everybody around you, they were getting hired. Does that not then become a you problem rather than a statistical problem?
Yeah, it could have been. It could have been what I was studying. I studied healthcare administration, and because at the college campus they told me, the recruiter over the phone said if I got this degree, I would be employable as a, basically like a department manager in a hospital. And that's what I was trying to do, was work my way up the business of hospitals. But it was just simply not true. I was told whatever it took to sign that paper, take on the debt and pay. So I went through the program and did what I was told. I put the trust in the people who were there to guide me. And now I ended up in a situation where I was buried in $60,000 of student loan debt and looking for another solution.
Yeah.
All I'm saying is that that's the system that I think caused the whole scenario where you're saying jobs are not paying people well. Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, it is interesting. I actually have published research about the cost of higher education. It costs too much damn money to go to school. All right, period. And this is a challenge that continues to permeate in our American society. Other industrialized nations, they've solved it. We have not. We still have out of control college debt, and it's because of the price of college. Now, let's go to a reality in the data. Since you said let's get better data for things. If you actually extend the moratorium, okay, and I know they didn't do it federally, but if they would have, you actually save more taxpayer dollars than not. So let me give you a little bit of background to the data of homelessness, okay? Because that's what we're talking about. We're talking about people becoming homeless. That's what we're saying. This is from the Department of Housing and Urban Development. According to their assessment, it would cost $20 billion to truly end homelessness in America. That number is a big number, but let me put it in perspective. Americans spend $19 billion a year on unplugged appliances. We spend $35 billion a year on gym memberships. And we spend $718 billion on military alone. That was the assessment of 2019. Let me give you another data set. It currently costs about $35,000 to $37,000 for a homeless person to be in a local community or state. That's how much it costs on average for us to take care of that homeless person and what may happen due to the revolving door of incarceration, mental health, benefits that they take advantage of, et cetera, okay? You got about $35,000 to $37,000. You know how much it would cost to actually resolve it on the front end with actual housing at cost? $12,800. $12,800 in the front end would save the taxpayer $35,000 to $37,000 on the back end. So why have we never approached it as that commonsensical?
Well, Dr. Ritchie, I want to make my position really clear on the subject first too. I don't think millions of Americans need to be kicked out of their house. I think that would be a terrible solution. That's absolutely the wrong thing to do. There needs to be another solution put in place that is more, what's the word I'm looking for? It's better a present time solution to the scenario at case. We need both the bank, the landlord, and the tenant to all be a little bit compassionate with each other and look for some sort of common ground. Like we both know right now that the banks are making a killing on these mortgages that they write, and they make millions and billions and billions of dollars. So if they gave a little leniency to that landlord, and that landlord can pass that leniency down to the tenant, then that would be a great thing for society. I don't think making millions and millions of people homeless is the right thing to do. It's clearly wrong. And even from a business perspective, millions and millions of vacancies would crash a market. So it's not a smart solution either way. But there has to be put back into place a system of give and take and a system of exchange, because that is what got us to where we are now. It was always the even exchange and the relationship of win-win. You pay rent, we provide housing, maintain it, keep it clean, right? Yes, there were flaws in the system, but you can only try to make it better and progress forward, right?
You got to address those flaws. See, you can't get to a real solution without addressing the underlying issues that led to it in the first place. What we're seeing are the disparities, but the disparities were present and they coexisted well before the housing crisis, COVID-19, anything else. Let me read another stat to you, brother, because I agree with you on the tenant side, right? Because this is bad for tenants too. Evictions are bad for tenants and it's bad for landlords.
Yes.
So here's what happens if you provide no safety net for what's happening right now in America with the suspension or not allowing the moratorium to continue and not truly providing a solution or remedy for the whole problem. When you accrue filing fees, lawyers' cost, lost rent, which are the vacancies you just talked about, and damages to the unit, studies show that these eviction-related costs will average $4.2 million in the short term. Nationwide, 2.6 to 4.6 billion in the long term, and 50 billion, brother, after 1 year. 50 billion. That's just on the landlords, right? Yeah. So why is it a disconnect between the landlord and the tenant when it comes to the policy that must move it forward? You have to agree with me, brother, saying that the moratorium needs to end and just saying nothing else. That's not helping landlords. That's hurting them based on the numbers.
That would not be a smart solution whatsoever. I think the moratorium needs to end, but there has to be some other regulation enacted that helps ease the adjustment back. But it was that accountability in the exchange process on both ends that created a winning relationship to begin with. There should be some sort of safety net in place, maybe some sort of subsidies or tax breaks or anything that would help recover lost money and ease the landlord-tenant scenario back into a normal state. Cutting it off completely and saying, okay, now you're gonna get kicked out of your house would do incredible damage to everyone involved. So I don't think that would be a smart solution.
Yeah, so the Urban Institute, they have numbers as well. If you were to evict 4.2 million adults right now, if you were to do that, the cost to the tenants would be $1,200 per unit, which is about 5 billion. Lost earnings would go to $1,500 per unit, which is 6.6 billion. And the total cost to tenants across the country would be $2,700 per unit, which is 11.6 billion. The cost to the landlords, based on the Urban Institute study, if you were to evict 4.2 million adults, the cost to serve these evictions, 2.6 to 4.6 billion, just to serve the eviction. All right. The cost of lost rent and repairs up to 50 billion, and the total cost for landlords per unit is between 2,542 to 12,998, which means on the high end of that, you're looking at over $11 billion in actual revenue loss. Yeah. So these numbers, for some reason, are hidden from a lot of the policy debate as it relates to what solution should be on the table. And this is a game that a lot of people play in partisan politics, especially. Agreed. They would try to frame this, brother, as a landlord versus tenant discussion. Well, the truth is, it is a landlord and tenant discussion.
Absolutely, it's a society discussion, right? We all need to progress forward with a solution that makes sense for everyone involved. You can't have a one-sided solution that will destroy a lot for a lot of people. And I'm a big proponent of finding common ground. So you're not gonna find me arguing one way and not the other.
Brother, I appreciate your time on Indisputable. You have an opportunity to come back, man. And listen, brother, continue doing what you're doing. I know you and I may disagree on some finer points, but we do agree on some major ones too.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me. I'm very grateful.
Absolutely. All right. Ladies and gentlemen, just remember, take care of yourself, take care of each other, take care of this planet. And remember, the truth is always indisputable.